Are you ready to learn what red flags keep an eye out for when looking for love?
Then we got you covered. I'm Brianna.
And I'm Alex.
And this is the podcast where we unpack reality TV and call out the bullshit.
So that you show up confidently while dating and in relationships. Welcome to Ditch the Script.
I love it. Hey.
Oh.
Hi.
Hi, how are you? Oh my God, I'm so happy to be here.
Me too. I missed you so much. So just to recap anyone who's listening right now, if you didn't follow our social medias, last week we did not have a new episode of Married at First Sight. So Alex and I regrouped and we were like, honestly, let's just take the week to like work out life stuff because, spoiler alert, life is happening.
It is happening.
Yeah.
I'm adulting real
Really
hard. Really hard. So, so for those of you who hang out with me on social media, you might already know this, but I used to be an events manager, and I make the joke all the time, like, because obviously part of events managing is a lot of weddings, and I used to like analyze the couples I would plan weddings for and all of that. Well, obviously COVID happened. I got furloughed. I started my business, and now here we are 2 years later, and they were like, "Hey, we want you back." So they're respecting all of my business boundaries. I started working again for them. I also love our team. Like, I cannot express how much I love and adore the people I work with. Like, they're good people.
Yeah.
We're all just a bunch of hippies that plan events. It's awesome. I love it. And so they're very respectful of my business. They follow me. They support me.
That's
and,
really nice.
So I can do both. And so this week we have like a very fancy VVIP event going on. And last night I was at work late. So I walk out to leave and discover that my car window was smashed in and my car was broken into.
Yeah.
And it was a whirlwind of feelings. If I'm being honest, I did tear up for a second because it just feels so vulnerable and like, it's like someone was in my space in like a violent way. It just feels icky.
Yeah. Of course.
And then on the other side of that, I was like, this is okay. Like things could be worse. Like nothing was taken. They did use a giant wrench to bust my window, which was found on my driver's seat floor.
Hey, you have a new wrench.
But I do. At first, I was like, nobody touch it. I need a plastic bag. Let's get the fingerprints.
I need to collect this evidence.
I need to dust this for fingerprints.
That's really
But
funny.
yeah, like what I thought was really cool, because like full transparency, this same car window was broken into just over 2 years ago as well. So I kind of laughed and I was like, okay.
Palm Springs, do
this
better.
just happens. I know. But, that experience, like just being able to witness like the difference of like when it happened the first time to like where and who I am today and like the growth I've had was also really cool. So, it's like, because those are really uncomfortable moments, but if we can handle them well, I think it's just a testament to our own emotional maturity and like our perspective on life.
I think you handled it like...
It was kind of cool to be tested.
I think you handled it like a fucking champ. And I know what you're talking about. Like my typical gut reaction to an experience like that is I get really upset because I almost have this tendency to personify like my belongings. So you were mentioning sort of, it was it feels very violating because it's like your space, your stuff. And for me, that feels like, oh my God, you hurt my pet. And it's like, it's a car. So I usually go through a process where I like at first emotionally react because I'm like, you hurt my thing. And then I take space and I'm like, that's right, it's just a thing. Well, we were here talking about when my mom got in the car accident in my like brand new car. Yeah. And I had that, I forgot that was an experience that I sort of went through. I was like, oh my God, my thing. And then I was like, right, it's a thing. Like, this sucks. Yeah. This creates a lot of paperwork, a lot of responsibilities. Also, it's just sort of like, oh my God, on top of the added responsibilities of whatever else you may have going on, it just feels like, oh, why you gotta kick a girl when she's down? But you're crushing it. You're really handling it like an absolute mature champ.
I was so thankful that my friend in the Department of Engineering, he brought the shop back up and like gave it a very thorough vacuuming, like, of all the glass, because there was just glass everywhere. And the whole time all I could say was like, thank you. Like, thank you. Like, I was just so humbled by the fact that like everyone rallied together and met me in the parking lot, and they were like, we're here, you know? I felt a lot of love, and now, you know, there's a garbage bag. And the good news is, because this happened to me in 2019, my contact who fixed my window, we're buds. So like I already called him, and I'm using the term buds very loosely there, you know, buds as in we're familiar with each other. So my point is like, we're moving forward. Totally. Like, this doesn't need to like throw a wrench.
Yeah,
into my life.
Listen, if I said it,
pun intended.
Yeah, if I said it'd be too soon, but you said it, not me. That makes me think about when I called the woman that sold me my first car. I was like, Shan girl, you won't believe what just happened.
I need another.
So listen, if there's anything that's positive, is one, you got a new wrench. Two, you've got a friend that does windows. You got to connect. Three, you've got like the people around you.
I got hugs.
Yeah, you got hugs. What a weird and roundabout way to get physical affection. Oh my God. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's what we mean when we say...
It's been a week.
Yeah, exactly. That's what we mean when we say life is happening. You know, when sometimes you're like in your bag, you're in your lane, and you're like, wow, I'm like, me and life, we're like this. I got this. And then you have a moment or a day or a week or a month where life comes through and it's like, bitch, you forgot that I am all powerful. You forgot. And I'm here to remind you that I am like the ocean, strong and vengeful.
Yes. Beautiful for a time, and also extremely detrimental if given the right stimulus.
Woo! Clearly.
Yeah.
But we're okay.
So it's all good. We're so okay. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, I'm in such a great mood today. I think because of having that, where it's like, you know, like me, I don't know, I'm just really proud of myself.
Yeah. As you should be. Because
it's like, I could totally have been a hot mess last night. And I'm like, all good. It's okay.
Girl,
we're going to figure it out.
Let me tell you.
Is it annoying and frustrating? Yeah.
Totally. 100%. Yeah. You have full permission to be a hot mess. And the fact that you aren't, you're like, okay, go off. Yeah, you're doing okay.
Yeah. I'm a hot mess in other areas. Like for this VIP event we have this weekend, I'm kind of like, all right, all hands on deck, let's go.
Well, that's the other thing. So you do events work in Palm Springs, which right now is about to be, first of all,
we're gearing up for Coachella.
Yeah, you've got Coachella, 2 different weekends of Coachella, and events that have something to do with the people who are in town for that. And you're embarking on like the deep thickness of wedding season.
Oh my gosh, yes. It's a lot, but we're doing it. And like I said, I love my team. And so it's just like, we go in and we kick ass and we high five and we celebrate together. So it's a vibe.
Sounds dreamy.
It's a vibe.
Cool. Well,
yeah.
Shall we?
We so shall.
Cool. Married at First Sight.
Ding, 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 ding.
Who had us on our toes. Last week I was like, I'm getting ready to watch this show. Turn it on and it's a couple of...
No, you're not.
Yeah, exactly. A couple of dinglings talking about their thoughts. And I'm like, don't they listen to the podcast? We've already been over all this. Like, we've been talking about it.
Yeah.
And so
That's so 2 weeks ago.
yeah, I was like, girl, catch up. But anyway, so we were waiting for 2 weeks for updates following Katina and Olajuwon's like big blowout fight in front of
Dating
everyone.
app fiasco.
Yeah, exactly.
Bro.
Yes, we're gonna get into it. But what we're gonna start with is Mike and Jasmina, because we're trying to start on a high note. And our high note, my high note,
All right.
is this couple.
I know. I'm really proud of them.
Yeah. There are a lot
I'm
of
really proud of
things
them.
about what we saw in this episode from them that was just green flag, green flag, green flag, green flag. They're busting with greens.
Yes.
What did you think?
Always. Always. Yeah, I completely agree. You know, I'm really proud of Jasmina for like continuing to give him the benefit of the doubt, and like just to, for lack of a better way to put it, to just like be in this relationship, you know, because like I felt for a while, because of her mindset around what she had heard from his sisters, and like, you know, he can focus on the negative sometimes. She was so blinded by that for such a long time that I think it took her a while for her to see Mike,
Right.
like see the man that's in front of her, and like all the other good aspects of him. So I'm really proud of her for hanging in there, because now she is starting to like get the full Michael experience.
Right.
And he's a really good dude. Like, he's a great dude.
He's such a good person to like have on your team.
Yeah. Yeah, so like, thank you for setting this part up, because that was so proven in him teaching her how to drive in this episode. Like, not many couples can do that without fighting, because it feels like, you know, you take it personally if they're telling you to do something differently, or like what you need to watch out for. And they avoided that. There was a lot of laughs. There was a lot of joking to like, you know, get through maybe some of the more dangerous, nerve-wracking aspects of trying to teach someone how to drive. But it was really sweet to watch them bond in that way.
100%.
It was awesome.
I thought that was actually so cool. First of all, it started off on a high note for me because he was so adorable and like pulling out these cards that he like prepared and started quizzing her on. And there's like, they're being playful, they're like bantering, but they're also like sort of taking it seriously. Like I like when he switched from, he was like, what do you do if someone cuts you off? And she's like flipping the bird, and he's like, my girl. But also, no, that's not what we do. And like, I thought that was cute. I love that he just sort of like, now granted, I think that there are some people that probably would have been like, listen, I'm not interested in doing any of this unless I tell you I want support with it, which I would have understood. But Jasmina specifically speaks for herself when she's like, I would have never been the one to initiate this because I'm really afraid of doing this, and it's not actually something I totally want to do. So the fact that he went out of his way to initiate this with me was great, because I wasn't going to. You got to know your partner to know if that's like a green light moment. Right.
Totally. Because like, I mean, in another relationship, maybe with another person, that would have been like way more of a, it could have come across like a slap in the face to someone who felt like, you're trying to push me to do this and I don't want to do this, right? Like kind of controlling, and but that wasn't the case for them, and I was just really happy. I loved his demeanor. He was so calm the entire time. I was like, this guy he's the kind of person who would be a great like emergency worker, like an EMT or something like that, because he's just so calm. And yeah, and she was in such a good space that entire time. And she even says, like, you know, it was kind of cute that Mike was nervous, but like I wasn't nervous. And I felt that was a testament, and I think this was subconscious for her, but that to me almost shows how much she actually does trust him and feel comfortable with him. I just don't think it's conscious, because it's like, we've all been in a car with someone who we don't necessarily feel safe with, and that angst will be there. But when you are in a car with someone that you feel safe with, like, the vibe is, we're good. And so I don't think she necessarily realizes it yet, but to me, that's how I interpreted that statement. When she was like, I wasn't really nervous.
I had the exact same, like, curiosity. we hear her saying like,
Yeah.
I'm not nervous. It's kind of funny to see Mike nervous and it's making me feel not nervous. And I like doing this with him and whatever. And like, she's not seeing what I think that you and I both saw, which is that like, you're not nervous because doing this with Mike like disarms you. And that feels good. Like doing this with this person, you know, when you're like,
she feels safe.
Yeah, she feels safe. But like when you're doing what sounds like would be like really challenging or uncomfortable exercises or routines or tasks with a person that is just like making you feel like, don't worry, dude, like we got this. We got this. It doesn't have to be that scary.
Yeah.
It all of a sudden turns this thing that would be really laborious actually fun, and that's what they were doing. Like they were having fun, and I there was a part of me that was like, ooh, I wish she sort of gave him that credit to be like, I had a good time because I enjoyed doing this with Mike.
Right.
But she didn't do that.
Yeah.
She's like, it's funny because he's nervous. And I was like, yeah, I guess so.
Yeah. Which now, like, to move forward in the episode with them. So they have this amazing time, you know, with the car thing and Mike teaching her how to drive. And then we see them each talk to, Mike goes and talks to his sister, whom we've seen a few times throughout this series. And Jasmina chats with her mom. And she brings up, like, you know, we're in a good place. There's no tension. But Jasmina feels she should be farther along in her feelings for him than she is right now. And I just want to holler back to our first episode of Married at First Sight, where my concern with Jasmina from the beginning has been, is she going to understand that a slow burn without the, like, I'm obsessed with you, I want to jump your bones, is actually a good thing? Because what I'm seeing in this episode is, I don't think she consciously acknowledges the feelings she does have for Mike because they don't feel the same.
Yeah.
But clearly there's something there because this guy just made her feel super safe, right? And the week before, for their 1 month anniversary, he like rolled out the red carpet for her and like loved on her in a way that she really appreciated. Yeah. So I'm just curious to see what goes on with her over the next couple weeks, because I think she does has feelings. Oh my goodness, grammar.
You got it.
I believe Jasmina, we're going to get there. Are you going to hold my hand?
Yeah, virtually.
I believe Jasmina does have feelings for Mike. I really do. I just think she isn't cognizant of how her feelings feel for Mike versus other men she's been with.
That's a really good point. And I'm curious too, because there's a part of me that says, absolutely, that's what's happening. She's unfamiliar with this feeling. She's not putting any emphasis on the fact that, like, she's in a relationship with a brand new person, in a marriage with a brand new person that she is in all other ways totally progressing with in the commitment department and like healthy relationship department. Like, they've made a lot of progress in actually about a week and a half.
Totally.
Like, they've made a lot of progress. They have not been getting caught in their same communication barriers. He has listened to the things that she needs more of. We've seen her open up a little bit more. And they're not even like just participating in humor for the sake of easing tension. Like, they're fully leaning into the most comfortable parts of their dynamic, which is incredible to see. But then there's this other part of me that's like, is this similar to the experience of, like, let's say you meet someone on a dating app and you start seeing them in a dating context and you're trying to feel them out, and you are able to recognize all of the ways in which they're a great person and you really like the time that you've spent with them, but you just like can't feel a romantic or sexual connection in your loins. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know if that is at play here. Yeah. I'm trying to listen for that when she says, I don't have a romantic feeling. Like, I don't think that I'm interested in him, because I want to believe that she is in touch with her own radar on something like that. Right. And I'm trying to relate to it. Though a part of me is just like, oh my God, he's such a good dude. Like, you can make this work. Like, love can develop. But I also know what it feels like to have been on the receiving end of people being like, yeah, but can't your attraction develop? And I'm like, I just don't want to boink him. Sorry.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah, I'm a full believer that love and attraction can evolve. I feel like I see it in couples all the time, and like even I troll Reddit so much. I'm like fascinated by listening to people's relationship stories, but even people who've been married successfully for like 30 plus years, they're like, yeah, we were friends first, and then it just became like, oh my god, I really adore this person, even though at first I was like, I wouldn't swipe right on you on a dating app, like you're not my type. And so, you know, I am really interested to see what's going on with that, because I really believe that they could be amazing. Like, they're great. And it's just a bummer that I think she's getting in her own way.
What do you feel like?
If I remember.
Oh, carry on. Tell me.
No, I was just going to say, I feel like the first time they met, she said he was cute. Like, I feel like she was attracted to him on the wedding day. So I think she's just gotten in her head about, like, you know, this dynamic of like what she thinks a marriage or a relationship should be and what it actually is. Like. And I think a lot of people struggle with that. I think we saw that a lot in this relationship. Yeah. If there's like one theme or relationship, this episode, I feel like if there's one common thread in, I mean, Katina and Lanjuan are a separate topic, but amongst the other couples, I think and I talk about this on my social media all the time, I think there is a misunderstanding of what long-term relationships are and feel like. Because I feel like and we'll get into it with other couples, but I truly feel that this myth of like, if it's your person, it'll be easy. You know, relationships shouldn't have to take work. And it's like the sad reality, and what, I don't know if I want to label it a sad reality. The reality is that all of us are broken in some way, shape, or form. And so when you put two broken people in close proximity for a long time, something's got to give. Like, there needs to be some kind of growth. Right. And so I just feel that on both ends, by the way, not just one person. So I just feel that we're kind of seeing this kind of come up in these relationships where they're like, ooh, I didn't think I'd have to have these hard conversations. Ooh, you know, this isn't going to look my way or the highway. So like, what am I willing to compromise on? What am I willing to tolerate? What am I not willing to tolerate in a marriage? Right? So yeah.
I have a question. I want your,
we will see
your advice on something. So while we see Jasmina and Michael, as far as the information that we have available to us, they are a really good couple that has a lot of promise ahead of them as far as like a committed, healthy relationship. But where they're struggling right now is they haven't really built on any physical intimacy. And you can sort of add in there some like emotional intimacy wrapped within the context of physical intimacy. So what would you recommend for couples who want to build on that intimacy?
I think, first of all, before I answer this question, I want to say what matters when it comes to progressing physical intimacy. I mean, intimacy of any kind. Safety is first and foremost priority. Yeah. Like, you need to feel safe. So, you know, and I would say talking about it. Like, that's the other thing, is so many people hate talking about sex. I used to be one of them. But it is a necessary thing to do, because sex, it's like ice cream flavors, right? Like, there are so many different flavors. There's toppings, there's syrups, there's cone, there's a cup. Like, there's all these different options to you. But your partner's not going to know what ice cream you prefer with what toppings and what setting if you don't tell them. And so I think personally, like, a way of starting to develop physical intimacy is like starting small, starting slow. Like, obviously, like, and I understand with hookup culture, some people just want to like jump into the bedroom. And if you're comfortable doing that, power to you. But when it comes to these dynamics where you're trying to establish long-term love and someone may not be ready, you know, or you're at varying levels, it's having that conversation of like, okay, well, what does feel available to you right now?
Right.
Is that cuddling? Is that holding hands? Is that maybe, you know, we're taking it another layer? Maybe it's handsies, maybe it's oral and like not full on penetration yet. Like there's so many other layers where we can start. It doesn't need to be a home run the first go around,
Right.
but you need to have that conversation. And the other aspect of that conversation that needs to happen is, you know, what would make you feel more comfortable? You know, like how do you like to develop intimacy? How has that happened in your past relationships?
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, and I think a lot of women, and this can, you know, this is like such a gender norm, but there are people, let's just say, who need to have an emotional connection before they can fully get there physically.
Yeah.
And so I think that's what's going on with Jasmina here.
Yeah.
Is like she's looking to have these kind of feelings and sensations before she does that with him. Mm-hmm. But Mike needs to know what she needs to get there.
Yeah.
And that's the missing piece
right
now.
Right. Yeah. So talking about it, exploring maybe where people's like
starting small.
Yeah, starting small. Where are their barriers? What feels on if you don't want to get too far into like the negatives, what, like you said, what's on the table? Like it's really nice when you like come up from behind me and like grab my waist and you hug me while I'm like in the kitchen, like small things. Yeah. And it's like first of all, having that conversation can sort of like light a fire. Like all of a sudden you're like,
oh my gosh.
Yeah, your brain is like ticking, gears are turning. And sometimes you might have to be like, whoa, okay, let's pump the brakes. And then
just the thought of
right, just the thought of it. So then like if that's what talking about it can do, then imagine what taking some of those small steps can do. So yeah, I like that. Talking and building slowly, building with small actions. Cool. Okay. Yeah. So we see them just absolutely continue to deepen their connection, their relationship. It's so wonderful to see. Have anything else on them?
I do have one thing I want to bring up. I've seen Jasmina do this a couple times, but towards the end of the episode, we see her after Mike cooks for her, which, by the way, that looked bomb, what he made. She says, you know, if we can keep this up, we're going to be in a good place. Like kind of alluding like by decision day, then we'll be good. And that made me cringe a little because I feel that puts a lot of pressure on both of them.
Agreed.
And I think if I could announce one thing shout it from the rooftops of the planet and have this message land with every human being, conflict is neutral.
Yeah.
It's how you handle it that matters.
Mm-hmm.
And so, because I feel that Jasmina interprets conflict as, oh no, this isn't working. And it's not that conflict means your relationship's not working. It's what is the fallout of the conflict that matters. Right. Because when she says, you know, if we can keep this up, I hear that. And this might be an Alexism. I will own this. But if someone were to say that to me, I interpret that and I feel like it's a little bit of like I don't know if threat's the right word, but like if we get into a tough spot again, this isn't going to work. Yeah. And it's like, but the reality is if you're with someone for 40 years, life is going to get hard. Yeah. There are going to be tough seasons. Right. So what do you do in those moments if that's your mindset? Yeah, it's moving the goalpost. And that's it. Right? Like she's like moving the goalpost where it's like okay, great, we could get through these conversations, wonderful, but like we got to keep it up till decision day. And then what happens after decision day? Like does everyone get to relax? Likely not. Like I think I understand where she's coming from. Like I think that a lot of women are socialized to say like you got to keep chasing me, you got to keep trying to date me. And there's a part of me that fully believes some of that sentiment, which is like we should be trying to date each other, but trying to date each other doesn't, like you said, doesn't mean that we're not going to have conflict. It just means, do we have enough respect for one another that we're going to try to navigate the conflict
in a way where we both feel like we're working towards getting each other's needs met. You know, like, are we still committed to listening to each other? Are we still committed to expressing how we feel about a certain situation? That is what adds up to us keeping the good thing going. But you saying, yep, don't have any scary fights with me, don't have an opinion that's different from mine in the next 3 weeks, otherwise I'm going to say no. That feels very like baity.
Yeah.
I don't have a better word for it.
Yeah. So that was the only thing that, like, and out of that entire, like, episode with this couple that I was like, ooh, okay,
Yeah.
I don't like
Yeah,
that.
totally.
But that's it.
Okay.
Ding.
Ding. So we want to talk about Katina and Olajuwon and their fallout from...
Oh, yeah, we do.
Their fallout from the dinner party. So the last that we saw of them from the previous episode, which was 2 weeks ago, was that Olajuwon was upset about Katina have a dating app. She was trying to defend herself to say, like, I don't even use it. I have tons of apps that I don't use. And he was like, nah, you don't, like, you have it. That means that you're not trustworthy. We see both of them, like, Katina reaches out to Jasmina and Mike for support. Then Mike goes to Olajuwon and has a chat with him to sort of get his feelings and offer him support, which, by the way, in that conversation, my man Olajuwon was ripped. Did you notice that?
No.
That man was stoned off of his ass, girl.
Oh.
Yeah, and I could tell because his...
I didn't notice at all.
You got to go back and watch at some point tonight.
Oh my God, that's so
And, like,
funny.
I get it. Clearly, like, I have a feeling that that's how he, like...
We'll post it to the gram.
Yeah.
We'll make a meme.
I have a feeling that that's how he copes, and it's like, no judgment. Like, we all smoke weed. It's fine. But what I will say is that...
Yeah.
Is that he... I already know what happens. Listen, stoner brain to stoner brain. I understand what happened. He had this fight, and then, like, they blew up. Olajuwon blows up when he's upset and he feels wronged, and he's very passionate and he's very emotional. And I think, and I'm making big generalizations here, but I feel like I figured out why he rarely like learns how to cope differently, because he is so used to exploding and then self-soothing via marijuana. Like, I think that that's how he comes down, but he doesn't ever actually, like, change his demeanor, his behavior, so that he doesn't have to come down from such a big eruption.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Weed does not equate to emotional regulation.
Yes.
Folks.
Yes. Thank you. I totally agree with that.
Weed is not soothing your nervous system.
Right.
Weed's great. I'm all for it.
Yeah.
It should be legalized in all the states.
Yeah.
Alex for president.
Yeah, exactly.
However, it is not a way to soothe your nervous system and come back to a logical place where you can communicate effectively.
Yeah, exactly.
No.
Exactly. I think, like, for Olajuwon, it really just seemed like I got to take the edge off. It's self-medication. And it's like the same way that people tend to use alcohol, where it's like, whoa, I need a drink. And it's like, okay, so you're self-medicating. You're not really dealing. And, like, Olajuwon was very much still in his feelings, which he has every right to be in his feelings about his position. Katina was as well. But I just didn't feel that he was reflecting. And also, it didn't seem like he was super emotionally and mentally available to actually be processing. And that's why I sort of keyed into that issue, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, cannabis will actually screw up your ability to regulate. I was just in the trauma program that I'm in, we were just talking about cannabis use and how it kind of can screw with our ability to do that, which it's a stimulant of some kind, you know, it's not necessarily the same as alcohol, but it's like or other, you know, insert name of drug here. But we need to be mindful of when we are in those spaces. Like my car getting broken into last night, the second, because then I had to wait. It took about 2 hours from me discovering my window to me actually getting in my car and leaving, because we had to vacuum and there was a bunch of stuff that happened. And everyone was like, have a drink, have a drink, have a drink. And I was like, no, like now is not the time to be reaching for that. And I just sat there with all of the like thoughts, and like I breathed, and like I said, I got a hug. Hug is co-regulating, people. So like that's what you want to reach for in those moments, or like breathing. If there's someone around that can like help you self-soothe, ask them for the hug, for the rubbing of the back, like whatever works for you, you know. But like for me, I knew that if I reached for alcohol or any kind of substance in that moment, it was going to short circuit my ability to fully process, which now that we're talking about it, that's probably why I am in a chipper mood today, is because I gave myself that time immediately last night.
That's a really good point.
So,
it's a really good point.
Just wanted to tie that in because I felt like it's related.
We were going there, all based off of my assumptions, which could be wrong. Okay, we gotta.
Why else would he have bloodshot eyes?
Girl, I could see just by the heaviness of his lids. They were like, and like the way that he was talking, I was like, this is all too familiar, all too familiar. And also, he was making crazy generalizations where the way that he was talking about, like, the reasons why he felt so justified in his, like, I think that this is weird that she had dating apps, is because he goes into his like, I made lots of changes to get prepared for this. I did this. I did that. I'm taking it seriously. That actually told me when I heard that Olajuwon doesn't believe Katina's non-use of this app because it would never be him. He cannot be trusted with stuff like that. And so he immediately...
He says that.
Right. So he puts that on her.
He projects.
And exactly. So that's an example of projection. So he's like, you have a dating app. You must behave the way that I do. And so if I could do it, you're doing it. And I'm not even hearing you talk about your individual relationship with dating apps or whatever collection of apps you have on your phone, because I am only seeing a projection of myself onto you. And that makes me scared because I know what I'm capable of.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought that up, because that was something I put in my notes that I really wanted us to touch on, is like textbook projection. And so we covered it. Snaps for us. But yeah, it's that conversation was so illuminating to me. And I am glad that, because eventually what we see is they do on their little camcorder thing, Katina and O get back together and they say that they took ownership of their part and they both apologize to each other and that, they're going to move forward and things are going to be good. But I'm really, really sad because when you and I were chatting on this last time, and I was like, he's really crossing a line here with how he's talking to her. And I was like dying for an expert to come in and be like, this isn't okay. No matter who you're with, whoever, whenever, you do not talk to people this way. And that didn't happen yet. I'm wondering if it happens in the next episode because of the preview we got. But
who knows?
That's what's hard for me right now is like, I get that O and Katina came back together and they were like, I apologize. And like, O's like, I need to work on my tone. But it's like, that's such a vague... Tell me more about that, Olajuwon. When you say I need to work on my tone, what does that mean to you? Okay, I need to work on not screaming at my wife. I need to work on when I feel this way, I need to take a second, a timeout. I need to calm down. I need to not knife hand her and get all up in her face. When she starts to cry, maybe that should be a cue for me to back up. Like, it was just like, anyone can sit there and be like, yeah, I need to work on my tone. Mm-hmm. What does that mean? Like, can we get specific about what that looks like? And the reason I crave that so much from Olajuwon specifically is I don't know if he knows.
Right.
That's what I'm saying.
It's one of those where it seems like he's saying what he knows that he needs to do just to get by and to buy his time to not be doing the thing that he needs to do. Like, he doesn't, if right. We believe that he doesn't actually know what it means or what it would take to actually change his tone, then he's only going to gain the trust of the people who are asking that of him by saying, I know I need to work on my tone. I know I need to work on my tone. We come away from a fight. I know I need to work on my tone. I'm working on my tone. And like, I just like, I really, I don't want to over assume anything, but I really feel for Katina being in this dynamic because I only continue to see her concede and try to put herself in a position in which she's sharing with Olajuwon, like, I understand where he's coming from, and I apologize then, and I'm going to apologize now. Gave me very, like, person being held hostage in front of camera vibes. Yeah. Even though I don't want to assume that she's, like, actually in a position like that. It just felt gross. That's all.
It did. Yeah, I completely agree with that. And yeah, let's get specific. And I say that because, like, me too, y'all. Mm-hmm. Like, one of Alex's weaknesses in my own relationship has been having to work on my tone, because when I try and communicate directly, I can come across as condescending. That's never my intention. I'm just trying to keep track of my thoughts. And so I kind of speak in this very, like, monotone, robotic, like, ba-ba-da-ba-da. And that's something I've had to get really clear on for me. And like, I need that. I need to define that, because then it gives me an understanding of actionable steps. Like, okay, don't position your hands this way. Okay, volume's not a thing for me, but it's like, I need more inflection in my voice, So I'm just full transparency. Like, I get it, Olajuwon, it is a thing but that's why I'm like, we need to define it. Like, what does that mean for you and Katina?
I need the experts to step in and help everyone now.
For real. Yeah. Because it's like...
It's painful to watch for everyone.
Shit's getting real. Yeah. So then Katina has her friend, who, by the way, I loved her friend's hoodie. It had like a bunch of spacey stuff on it. And I was like, oh my God.
I liked her friend. She was sweet.
But what yeah. They have like a really cute relationship. I like them a lot. But, Katina acknowledges that Olajuwon needs time to work on that. And so Katina's like, I need to decide if I have the patience to wait for him to get there. And I literally put clap emoji, fire, gold in all caps, because that is it. That's gold. Like, that truly is gold. Is like, we need to understand that, again, partnerships require influence, being open to influence from our partners, and like stepping into new ways of being, because not everyone's going to communicate the exact same, or our triggers are going to be different from relationship to relationship, but they're still going to be there. So it's like, what really needs to come down to it is, do we have the patience to wait? Do we love this person and buy into this relationship enough to hold out for their progress? Yeah. Do I value them and value us as a team enough to hang in there for the end goal? And, I think obviously that's a question that only people can answer in their own relationship. Yep. But two, the other thing I would say is, if you do decide to stay, you need to look for the actionable steps that they're taking to do that, right? Because promising it isn't enough.
That reminds me of this quote that I'm going to paraphrase from this woman I follow on like Instagram and TikTok. Her name on her Instagram handle is Hello Teffy. And she talks about, like, she says, I can't love you for the promise of who you're going to be for tomorrow. I need to love you for the person that you are today. Right. And that speaks to me, because it sort of explains that. It's like, I can hear the ways in which you genuinely or inauthentically are promising me about the changes you're going to make for yourself in our relationship in the future. But if I'm not, I'm only going to be able to meet the person that you are today. And when tomorrow comes, tomorrow, So she, I appreciated that as well. I liked that she was sort of reflecting on the fact that she has her own level of choice here. And I needed her to recognize that it's not just her making improvements in her relationship to hopefully be chosen.
I know.
Katina.
Yeah. Ooh, that relates.
Remember when...
Also,
sorry, I was just going to say, Olajuwon, do you remember when
no,
Olajuwon at their wedding said to her mom, he called her Katrina?
Oh, yeah. Oh my God, I can't. Not
Anyway,
okay.
so
Not
right,
okay.
what were you gonna say?
I was just gonna say, then Katina goes on to make a bomb ass taco night. Those tacos looked so good. They had these tequila beverage. I guess they made margs, but they were just talking about tequila. It was green, probably was a marg. But like it, oh my God, and rice and beans, and I love rice and beans.
Girl,
Oh my God,
love language,
so
rice
good.
and beans.
Anyway, look at her looking to cook. That's the thing, though, is she didn't know how to cook, and now she's making this spread that me, Mexican food snob, I'm like drooling. Like, can I come to your taco night, Katina? Damn,
yeah, she's
girl.
holding down
like,
taco night.
Snaps for Katina stepping into that role. Get it?
Yeah, very cool.
MVP.
She gets MVP. She gets MVP probably for the whole series so far, because I don't know anyone who's worked harder than Katina.
Yeah. She is doing it. She is growing.
Okay.
Girl.
You got more?
All right.
Ding.
No.
Okay. Let's talk about Steve and Noi. Ooh, you know what I'm noticing? Resentment is building. And we said that shit was going to happen.
Because they aren't talking
exactly
about the one thing they need to talk about.
Finances, baby, which is uncomfortable and it's icky and it sucks until you're having the conversation and you're like, okay, this is fine. And absolutely everything that we needed. Something that is coming up, because we still don't I don't know if there are conversations that they're having about finances that we are not getting airtime with. But I gotta say, they're just straight up not talking about it, because the thing that keeps coming up is Noi is mentioning that Steve will tell her what his plans are once he has an idea of what their shared family plans are. And then we see Steve having a conversation with Mark privately where he's saying, I want to know what our goals are going to be. And then, I can make choices. I didn't understand this. And I just was like, yo, why are you gatekeeping your own plans from her? Why are you doing that?
Okay, so here's my interpretation of it. I feel, so Steve articulates to Mark, I'm contributing 3 to 4 times as much, which I thought was interesting. I'm like, okay, that's actually super fascinating if you are contributing that much more than her. And he's like, I have a decent amount of savings built up. I'm good. You can tell Steve is super confident there. Noi, this whole time, she's been harping on, I want you to get a job. And Steve keeps alluding to this creative aspect. I'm full on just assuming he means he wants to build his own business in some way, shape, or form. He just doesn't know what that looks like. And so he's taking the time and the finances that he set aside to have that period to figure out what he can create. What I am hearing, or what I think I'm hearing, is Steve wants to know, where do you want to settle down? Do you want to settle down in Boston? I hear that you want 3 kids. What are your expectations of our finances? In my mind, I think that's what Steve is looking for. He's like, I want to have a plan of what your expectation and what you've envisioned your life to look like before I commit to a 9 to 5. And then we hear Noi talking to Sriracha, and Noi tells her that, he says, I won't talk to him about these things. And I believe that.
Yeah.
I believe that Noi won't have, after what I've seen on the camcorder where they're we're getting that awkward look into their living room, which was another heated discussion that came up for them in this episode. She does kind of shut down. She doesn't, and then she'll try and avoid the conversation. So I feel that actually may be happening when it comes to this finance thing, because she even said that to Sriracha. She was like, what do you mean you need a plan from me? What do you mean? It's a job. Go get a part-time job. What do you want me to do for you? And so that's where I think they're kind of missing the boat, is Steve wants an understanding of what things look like long-term for Noi and what her expectations are. Noi is looking at this purely from just get a W-2 job. Yeah. And that's why they're missing each other so much. They're
so miscommunicating. They need to just, we've said it in the past, put their dicks on the table. Put your dick on the table. I think
For
that
real.
Noi is trying to, as
For
she's
real.
mentioned in the past, she's trying to protect herself from saying something that is likely very unkind, and like an emotional reaction of how she's feeling in the moment. But she really just needs to like say what she's afraid of. She needs to say what she's afraid of.
Yeah.
And Steve needs to say what he needs, and they need to sort of, they're going to continue to miscommunicate, which is okay to start. Like, I think when we, as couples, when we're like trying to approach these historically difficult conversations within our relationships, we think that, okay, we should just be able to have the conversation and then we'll just be able to see eye to eye and figure it out. But what you don't really recognize is that you have to sort of continue to miscommunicate and then keep trying to rephrase things a little bit differently or explain a little bit more about where you're coming from and hear where they're coming from. And then you eventually sort of untangle it all and then you really meet in the middle. But in order to do that, you need to make sure that you are emotionally regulated throughout the conversation and constantly checking yourself that you're in an active listening mode instead of getting defensive, because otherwise you're going to shut off your hearing.
Yes.
But like, you will, like, does that make sense? Like, you're going to say the thing that doesn't make sense to the other person until you start getting there.
Practice. What Bree is trying to articulate here is practice. Communication takes practice. You don't decide like, okay, I'm going to use ballet just because, like, obviously that's something you and I can relate to, but like this can apply to anything. You don't go to a ballet class one time and say like, I need to be a ballerina when I walk out of here. Hell no. You're going to look like crap. You're going to fall. You might roll your ankle a few times. And guess what? You keep showing up and eventually you'll get the triple pirouette and land the jump. Like, that's what happens. So it's the same with this. It's the same with all relationship skills. It's the same with setting boundaries, guys. Like, the first time you go to do it, it's going to feel uncomfortable. You're not going to know what to say. You might, violate your own boundary in the end. But the more you keep going, fail forward. Brie and I say that to each other all the time.
Yep.
Fail forward, right? You don't learn how to communicate by not communicating.
Right. Exactly. And so they're doing a lot of that, and it's such a shame to watch because they really do have the makings of what would be a really successful couple. They've been of the stronger couples, i.e. the only strong couple for a majority of this process, and
a while.
And now Noi is starting to pull back. You can tell that because she's not feeling financially safe with Steve, she's starting to push herself out, which is why we get the conversation that we are sort of uncovering, which is that Noi she's not interested in moving in with Steve after the show's over. After they wrap, she wants to go move into her own apartment and he moves in his, and he's trying to understand why she feels that way. He's like, wait a minute, you want to like date after? Like, we're married. Like, part of the deal with the show is that we move in together and then we like continue life together. And she's like, I'm not feeling comfortable. And he's like, you're not feeling comfortable living together? And she's like, no. But she's not talking about what makes her feel so uncomfortable.
Exactly. Yeah. She just keeps saying, I don't know, I just don't feel comfortable. I don't know. This was very similar to what we saw with Jasmina when she was like, it's just a conversation. Right. It's like, we can't be like that, guys. Like, your partner can't read your mind. We need to be able to express and explain why we're feeling uncomfortable, what a conversation sounds and looks like to us. Like, define.
Yeah, absolutely.
Clarify it all.
I want to just touch on just quickly a little bit about like the reason why Alex and I are like, they're building resentment, the way in which we're seeing them build resentment towards each other as they continue to not have this conversation that they desperately been needing to have is, so Noi is working all day. And clearly she has feelings about the fact that she works and Steve doesn't work. So she's making little jokes with the video camera, and she sees that like Sushi, her dog, and Steve are sleeping in the middle of the day, and she's like poking fun. And then Steve starts talking more about how he takes care of Sushi, her dog, a lot throughout, most of the day, and he picks up after Sushi, and takes them out on walks, and then they get to this place where they're talking about cleanup responsibilities in the house. Like they need to clean the bathrooms, and Noi really doesn't want to clean the bathrooms. And like, girl, I hear you. I get it. I don't want to clean bathrooms either. But like, alas, we need clean places, sanitary places to shit and brush our teeth. Like that space has to be bacteria free as much as we can. So it's got to get clean. Yeah. And Steve's like, I need you to split these responsibilities with me. He's like, this isn't equitable. And she's not actually verbalizing, but what she's alluding to is, how is that equitable when I work a job all day? Like, I'm working all day, you should be doing it. And then it just starts to get like more passive aggressive, more nasty between the two of them. Steve's like sort of getting on the passive aggressive nasty train too. But what she's not saying is, she's like, this doesn't feel equitable. If I'm working and you're not working, why wouldn't you clean all of these things? Because this seems to be your only job. And he's like, this can't be my own. I need them to fucking talk about it. Jesus H.
I know. And then she was all like, well, I think you should do both, like clean the toilets and take care of Sushi. And then he was like, I think he said Steve's passive aggressive comment was like, I'll do this, you do that, good, nice doing business with you. And then she was like, you can kiss my ass. Ha 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 ha. And it's like, they're laughing about it, but they're not laughing about it.
They're not having fun. This isn't banter. This is them airing their frustrations without actually talking about anything. And that is the resentment that we're talking about. And I think that a lot of people probably can relate to that experience. And if you're wondering what the fuck that weird moment is, that's what it is. It's you not having it's you not clearing the air with your partner and saying what the fuck you both need to say.
Yep. Yeah. And like, again, on both ends, they just sit down and talk. Sit down and talk. Yep. That's the Steve and Noi jingle.
Sit down and talk.
Sit down and talk. Mark and Lindsay.
Okay, Mark and Lindsay. So something, they start off really strong in the episode.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're like, I'm not convinced. No, I'll tell you where I was loving where they were going, and then we'll sort of talk about what they led into. But Mark takes it upon himself to grab a big whiteboard and make a schedule for him and Lindsay. Their schedules are sort of all over the place. They sort of seem like to be like passing ships. And he's like, I want us to map out like what our food schedule is going to look like, so that's easier for both of us. And I want us to like map out like things that we're going to do together during the week. And he's actively like inviting her to sort of chime in about like, do we want to watch a show one night a week? Do we want to like have a movie night? Do we want to do a thing? And like, she's loving that. And I loved seeing that. I thought that was such a beautiful way to like incorporate each other in one another's lives. And all seem fine and good. They go grocery shopping, but we do see like some pet peeves arise. I'll be honest. I think my pet peeve is the fact that Mark is such a picky eater regarding like fruits and vegetables, where he's like in this interview, he's like giving Lindsay shit for like not adhering to a budget. But like, my dude, if you actually were inclined to try to eat healthier foods, you'd be way under budget, because eating vegetables and fruit, like that'll save you a shit ton of money, if I'm honest.
Less expensive than bacon.
Yeah, hell yeah. Anyway, sorry.
He was all about the bacon. Bacon's more expensive than a lot of produce.
Lindsay called him a chicken finger man, which I thought was actually kind of funny.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Big guy, little kid palate.
Yeah. What bothers me about that in Mark, and we end up seeing it again, is he shuts her down so much. And so Gottman Institute, if you've heard me go off about them, I love them. They're an amazing couple who has researched, relationships and what makes them work or not work. And what Gottman Institute calls these micro moments of trying to connect with our partner is bids for connection. Mm-hmm. And so Lindsay all the time. Like, she tries to bring him into her world. Like, oh, there's this new kind of watermelon. I haven't tried it yet. Do you want to try it? And he's like, no.
Yeah.
She's trying to connect with him about this new fruit she's never experienced. Do you want to smell it? Do you want to hold it? And he's just like, no. And she's like, this is perfect for ripeness. And like, nope, can't be bothered to like be open to hearing her out and just enjoying this experience with her. And then it happens again right before their big fight over the shark photo shoot thing. And I'll save that for when we get there. But you kind of like, that's so disheartening as a partner when your person is, you're trying to connect with them and they just keep shutting you down, keep shutting you down. It's so insanely painful. And so when Lindsay gets emotional, I freaking understand why. Her partner is like, you connect with me on my terms, is what it feels like. And I don't think Mark does that in maliciously. I just don't think he doesn't know what he doesn't know.
And I think that Lindsay sort of points out a little bit of what probably leads Mark to behave in this way. She's like, he is a stubborn little boy grown up. Like, she blames it on him being an only child, which I don't think is totally fair. Not to say that that pattern doesn't sometimes exist, but there are plenty of only children who are not this stubborn and not this like fixated on their own personal like ways of living. But she's like, you know, he's got, you know, only child stubbornness, and he just likes what he likes and he's not interested in compromising. And I do see that in him. Like, I see what she's talking about. Like, the way that he was shutting her down, as you described, was really frustrating because it was honestly like bringing a little kid around a grocery store. Yeah, it's the 2-year-old in the cart where mom's like, do you want to have these? And they're like, no. Yeah, exactly.
That's the vibe it felt like. And it's just like, no one wants to be told no. Like, Mark would be, that would really hurt Mark if the roles were reversed. If he was like, Linz, do you want to do this? And she's like, no. He would be offended too. Like, that's just not good juju.
Exactly. Then there comes to be a moment where Mark must have, this is what he did. They have separate laundry baskets. And they do this because Lindsay's nervous about Mark fucking up her clothes, i.e. putting shit in the dryer that shouldn't be dried, which, like, oh my God. I think a lot of women can relate to this. Anytime I have spent time in my parents' house, I'm like, don't fucking touch my laundry. You're going to ruin my shit. My parents have this fight all the time. Because if you dry a lot of our clothes, because we buy a lot of fast fashion, because, oh my God, you know what, let me not get into my capitalism.
Society.
Yeah, let me not get into my capitalism rabbit hole. But what I will say is that a lot of our clothes are not designed to be dried in a dryer, and men don't have the same issue generally. So they think that they're helping, which I appreciate them thinking that they're helping. I think a lot of us lose sight on the fact that they're trying to help. And they ruin our clothes, and we get so mad, and she got so mad, and she lost her top. And I think that I could see, we didn't see all of the buildup that led to this moment, but I think that like all of the frustrations that Lindsay's probably getting from like the fact that Mark is a little bit hard to live with and cohabit with blew up into this like, you fuck up everything, and why can't you just do what you say you're going to do? I do what I say I'm going to do. And I understood where she was coming from. And I also think that when you come at someone like this at that level, there's no way that they're going to hear you. They're just going to get defensive.
No. Yeah, it's not helpful. Yeah. So she was really angry because she felt she had communicated it. She said 4 times, like I put that in my notes. And Mark said, you know, I did it. It was a mistake. And, you know, that happens. Yeah. That happens a lot where like we will communicate, we will say something, and our partner, because of their own shit, their own stress, what's going on in their life, they might acknowledge you, but they aren't actually hearing you. I'm not justifying it. Of course, we want that to happen as little as possible, but it happens. And does it mean that your partner maliciously messed up your laundry? No. Does it mean that that's a reflection of their feelings for you? No. So that... And I get that it's painful and it sucks, especially when you lose an item of clothing that you really love. But we need to understand that people are people. And so I feel like what would have been great is if Mark was like, I'll replace that shirt for you. I'm so sorry, you know? And like moving forward, what are we going to do to make sure the laundry, we don't do this again to each other? You know, but it didn't go that way. It was the shouting match.
Yeah, it was bad. Well, I'm sure that he probably felt like he was being scolded like a little child, which is sort of the position that Lindsay gets into when she feels the way that she feels.
Yeah, she gets really contemptuous. Yeah.
Okay. So what happens? Tell us what happens at the end. The shoot.
So what ends up happening is Lindsay is of the mindset for this evening, after the fight they had about the laundry, that she is going to dress all of their 5 cats in little shark costumes, because Mark's nickname is Mark the Shark, and they're going to do a little family photo shoot. Cute. Mark comes home after he chats with his friend Erica, where Erica was like, you know, you both really just need to be better at communicating, you know, and that you guys need to not hold grudges and things like that. So Mark comes home and starts having the conversation with Lindsay as Lindsay's eating dinner. And Lindsay starts, again, the bids for connection. She's like, do you want to have a bite of this? Do you want to try it? And he's like, no, that's your food. I'm going to have my own. And she's like, I think you'd really like this. Like, just try the sauce. And he's like, no. And she's like, just a little bit, like, just put your pinky in it. And he's like, no, I'm not going to like it. And she's like, but how do you know you're not going to like it? She's like, because I don't like it. And she's like, well, what's in this sauce? And he's like, I just don't want it. I said no. And then, like, she ends up, like, getting she ends up forcing him to, like, eat something. So, again, he just keeps constantly shutting her down.
Yeah.
And, you know, he had already seen the cats in the shark costumes when he had gotten home. And he sits down next to her, starts to feed himself after that awkward interaction, and starts to bring up this conversation with Erica. And he's like, you know, things have been really hard. And Lindsay immediately is like, well, I know, like, I've been here too. And he's like, can I finish?
Yeah.
And he goes on to, like, say this stuff. Lindsay is, like, not about hearing it. And she gets up and decides to leave and not participate in the photo shoot. And it's really awkward because then Mark's just doing it alone, and then she comes back, and then they end up trying to, like, just have an awkward photo shoot together. And 'twas bad. 'Twas really bad. My opinion on how this could have been avoided, because Mark goes off in his conversation with her to basically say, like, every day's different. This is such a roller coaster. And when we need to understand, we need to ask for consent to have these convos. We really do. We can't just come home from being apart all day and have the expectation, like, I want to have a talk, so you need to be ready to have this talk. It literally needs to say, like, oh, hey, we're having dinner. Like, is now a good time to, like, bring something up, or we can, like, have a conversation later, like, what works for you? And she's like, she probably would have been like, yeah, the photographer's on their way, because she just wanted to have a good evening.
Yeah.
And he didn't, like, allow for her to say, like, well, this is where I'm at, because guaranteed if he had done that, they would have just had their good evening, you know? And so I feel that asking for consent would have really helped. And then the other thing is like, I really feel they need to paraphrase what each other is trying to communicate to make sure that they're actually hearing each other. They never do that.
And what you mean by that is like let's say you and I are having a conflict, and I'm like, hey, Alex, like, I'm really upset because you ruined my clothes. And you're like, okay, so you're not upset that I ruined I did your laundry. You're upset that I didn't do it properly. Is that right?
Right. Mm-hmm. Yes. And so I feel that would be really good for them, because, and I also feel that Mark should validate Lindsay more. That's the other thing, is like, I think that would really help her.
And she's expressed that that's something that she responds really well to. A number of times she said that.
Yeah. Yeah. So those are my 3 tips for this couple on, like, what they should do if they're going to fix this communication breakdown that happens all the time, because it's like, I don't feel either of them feel heard. And so that's where the paraphrasing will help. they need to validate each other more. Mark specifically should validate Linz more, because I do feel like Lindsay is like good about being like, okay, I hear that you're upset about this. I do feel like she has that communication tactic just a little bit more fine-tuned than Mark. And the other thing is just asking for consent, because it's like if you come home and she's like, hey, I have this plan for this cat photo shoot, and you're like, well, let's have this hard convo real quick before the photographer gets there, that's no bueno. That ain't going to be productive in a short amount of time.
Yeah.
And like Lindsay was not in that headspace.
Totally. You know what? I really agree with you on that. Like, I agree. Consent is important to be like, hey, there's something that I really want to talk about. Like, are you ready to talk about something that's difficult or serious? And that's really important. I will say that in this experience, what also feels difficult is that Lindsay had this like agenda that like they were going to have this like fun photo shoot thing, but also like maybe Mark wasn't feeling doing that.
True.
So she's like, no, it's time for us to have fun right now. And it's like, oh, maybe he wasn't in the headspace to like get in front of a camera and like do cheesy smiles. I don't know. I think that I think I'm putting myself in his position. I think that I would have been like, ugh, like that's the last thing that I want to do right now is do this with you. I wish that you asked me.
Yeah. Yes. Consent. Around it all.
For both of them. Okay. Shall we red flag, green flag?
Yes. Boom, boom.
Ooh, red flag.
That's my flag. Boom, boom. Someday we're going to have a sound engineer make really cool
it would be really great. Vroom, vroom. And it's all going to come from our original sound effects that we were making with our mouths for however long we were doing this until we got enough money for a sound engineer. Yeah. Okay.
All right. Red flag.
Okay. My red flag, which I forgot to touch on, is Noi posting on social media about conflict within her relationship. So just briefly, Noi ends up taking to, I imagine it's Instagram. They probably don't say it because they're not being paid to advertise for Instagram. But she like shares a story with a quote that says, the minute you start to question if you deserve better, you do. So Noi's in her feelings. She's posting on social media. And I'm going to be honest, I really don't like that shit. Like, I feel the same way that Steve does, which is just confused. And it's like, and then he's talking to his sister and he's like, she did this. And then I checked in with her. And I'm like, hey, I saw your post, but like, is that about me? Can we talk about it? And she denies that it's about him. But like, girl, that's bullshit.
What is it about then?
Yeah, exactly. So I really didn't like that. And I'll be honest, like, maybe it's just my personal preference to like privacy, but we're all like naturally curious, like what's going on? Are they breaking up? Are they together? Like what's happening? But for someone to like give me a total outsider of your relationship, whether I'm a stranger or not, inside information that's like sort of a vulnerable moment, a vulnerable checkpoint that says like, that's enough information for me to be like, Noi and her man are not good. And I can tell, you know, like, ew, I don't have any right. That's giving me, as someone who is not in a relationship and probably not your close friend, too much power, too much information.
Yeah.
Anyway, big red flag for me. Yeah. I would break up with someone. That would be a deal breaker for me with if someone I was dating started posting about us.
Yeah, especially if you won't talk to me about it. Because, like, that's the other half here. Is, like, Noi's not actively, like, let's talk. Like, let's sit down and do this, you know? It's just, like, this passive-aggressive thing. Yeah. That she then lies about, which, you know, Steve brought that up with his sister, and his sister was like, well, if she told you that, then you kind of need to take her at her word. And I'm like, but does he? Because, like, I mean, I get what she's saying. Yeah, I got that, too. I do agree with that, because it's like, at this point, you just need to drop it. But it's like, what else is it about? Right. You know, like, there's no reason to fight about it. You can just be like, I don't appreciate that. Yeah. Yeah. You know, it's just like, okay. My red flag is, I want to say it's applicable to all the couples, but the specific moment that we talk about it today is with O, and not getting really clear on exactly what actionable steps he needs to take to fix his part.
Yep.
You know, where, yeah, it's like, if I understand the fixing your tone, what does that mean? That's what I'm
lip
looking
service.
for.
It's lip service.
Yeah.
Yeah, agreed.
Yep.
If you
Yeah,
have
that's how
a
it feels.
partner that is reminding you again and again that they know that what they need to work on, that you've asked, or it's their own idea, but you're never really seeing it. Yeah, it's not happening. So, green flags.
Yeah. Green
What's yours?
flags. It's gonna be something with Michael and Jasmina, so let me just
Search.
decide on that real quick. Wait for it. I loved that Mike was able to communicate in a healthy way about his needs on driving. Like, I can't do it all. Like, I can't take you to work. I can't take you, and do all the errands. So I'm going to help you prep for your permit test and learn how to drive so we can solve this together.
Right.
I'm really proud of that because he basically took all of that on. And obviously he knows Jasmina. There must have been a conversation we didn't get on camera that alluded to her, like, saying she would be open in that, because that's healthy conflict resolution right there. Is like, he's expressing a need. She, is willing to step up to the plate and get her license to, like, help him with that. So he's not the one, like, schlepping her around to and fro and doing the groceries and running
And
errands.
picking up the dog. Yeah, absolutely.
And yeah, so I'm really proud of that. Good job, Michael, for demonstrating that to everyone.
I love that. It's interesting that when you're saying that, I'm recognizing the parallels between what Steve and Noy's, like, general relationship conflict seems to be about, and the way in which, like, it's pretty similar to what Michael was saying. And again, we didn't get to see Michael and Jasmina talking about what they feel is like an inequitable balance of responsibility taking, but Steve and Noy could really take a page out of Michael and Jasmina's book on this. So,
Totes.
my green flag is, it's actually with Mark earlier in the episode, when he, like, pulled out that whiteboard and he like brought. Yeah, I really like that. I thought that was a good use of a tool to help get a couple stuck out of a rut when it comes to routines, day-to-day living, cohabiting, functioning. But what they didn't end up doing, which was Lindsay's main complaint, was not following through. So it's all lovely and beautiful bunches of roses if you and your partner are talking about how to get on the same page and make a schedule that works for each other. What a great bonding experience. It's really a good way to get on the same page. But the two of you do have to commit to working through it and following through with that promise. If you are finding it difficult and you're one or both of you in the relationship are not keeping up with the schedule, you need to facilitate some check-ins where we're just like, what's going on? Where are we running into issues? Like, can we identify what the problem is here? And then you'll be able to work it out.
Yeah.
Okay.
Cool. And guys, super exciting. We have such a good listener queue. I'm waiting for my Google Doc to respond to my computer.
Yeah, a really good one. Do you want to take it away?
This week. I'm so excited about it. All right. So I am a 28-year-old female who is beginning a new relationship, who's with a 25-year-old female. It's her first relationship with a woman, and it's her partner's first relationship in general. As they become more serious, she's been trying to encourage transparency about how we're feeling, keeping the lines of communication open, and navigate this new relationship. The person writing into us says they tend to be more emotive and sensitive, more extroverted as a partner. So she's finding it really easy to identify and name feelings and concerns and sharing them, whereas she feels her partner is more comfortable sharing as well. Sorry, I'm reading this as I'm talking out loud. And she tries to support her partner as she learns to ask for what she needs and wants in a relationship. So her question for us is, do you have any tips for encouraging your shy partner to open up? Boom.
Yeah. I think that that's a really tricky situation to be in. There's plenty of room for the two of you to like figure out what works for you and to like have really wonderful explorative communication patterns in the future. But I'm just recognizing that it's a tough spot to start in. I think as the person who is more communicative and has more access to those feeling words, you want to try to assess and meet your partner where they're at, and take things slow, because what you want to avoid is doing what a lot of our couples in this show do, which is like finding yourself in either assuming that they should just be able to communicate the way that you do because it's, quote, not that hard, or being pretentious as like fuck and saying treating them like a baby, like this is how you have a conversation. Yeah. Like you don't want to do those things. I would just say like be really patient, meet your partner where she's at, and like when you find yourself trying to communicate and you're stumbling a little bit, when you are able to take a little bit of space from that conflict, whether you felt like it went rocky or not, I would come back to it and just be like, let's just check in about what that was like for both of us and see if that gives a more neutral space for one or both of you to be like, when you said this, that made me feel like that. And it just adds to that practice. What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the first and foremost thing to, I think is we just need to acknowledge and actually say these words. Like, I just want you to know you're safe here. Like, I value transparency and I want you to know that like anything you have to say, like I care about it. And I want you to feel comfortable opening up with me. So if there's anything you feel you need from me to feel safe in establishing that kind of trust and communication, let me know, and I'm all for it. I think like just acknowledging that and labeling that and using those words, because that's really what is so scary about opening up, especially in a new partnership, especially if someone's not used to opening up, is they've most likely, whether it's childhood wounds or past relationship wounds, although this listener says this is her first relationship, at some point, you know, they've expressed themselves and have been met with some kind of reaction where they've subconsciously learned, like, it's not safe for me to express myself, right? So you want to create this environment of safety where they truly do feel comfortable articulating anything they need to articulate. So that would be one thing. The other thing that I think can be helpful, and this is something that I'm going to preface by saying tread lightly with this, because I don't want this to come across very similar to how Bree was just saying, you know, you don't want to parent them or say like, this is how you do it, and come across like condescending in that way. But, you know, and you can blame it on us in the podcast, or you can blame it on my social media, like whatever. But a tool that I give to all of my couples is a feeling wheel. Because it's so great at learning how to label your emotions. And that right in and of itself is something that, unfortunately, not a lot of us learn how to do. And so it gets really challenging in the moment sometimes to label what we are feeling, if we haven't had practice doing that. So you're welcome to like say, you know, hey, I know you and I have been working on, you know, communicating and being able to like label how we're feeling. And I found this new thing called a feeling wheel. And so, you know, I screenshotted one off a Google image. Do you want me to airdrop it to you? And like, that's something we can use as a tool, you know, like saying that in that kind of way where it's both of us are doing this, not like I got you a feeling wheel so you can learn how to label, right? It's this team, we go together. But those would be my top two tips. Like, let her know that you want her to feel safe. Ask her if there's anything you can do for her to feel safe. And then just like be a supportive partner and say like, hey, there's this resource that I heard about that's really helpful for like labeling emotions. And I know that's something we both are working on. So do you want me to share it with you?
I love that. I really like what Alex said about like really naming and stating the safety of the environment or the situation. Because if you are someone who is used to expressing yourself pretty freely, chances are you've had plenty of experiences where you've taken the quote risk of sharing what you're feeling or really being honest about your experience with other people, and had the lived experience to know that you're safe, that you are always in control of what you share with other people, and you get to more or less be in control over how you deal with someone's reaction to it. So chances are, like, you have to consider that maybe your partner hasn't had the gift of that same experience. And so establishing safety in the room, essentially, so to speak, is a really good way to sort of set the tone for them to have what you've probably experienced.
And I want to say one last thing, because this is something I call out a lot of couples on, is be very mindful that if you tell her this and you're like, it's okay, you can trust me, you're safe here, that means moving forward, when she does articulate her needs, you need to be very mindful of the way you react. Because if you respond out of emotion in a negative way, you are only then reinforcing her insecurity around articulating her emotions and needs. So this is something where I have seen patterns of behavior where couples will be like, it's okay, trust me, I want to know the truth. They get the truth, and then it's like, rah, and they come at him. It's like, all right, well, you just completely violated any sense of trust and safety in this relationship. So we want to be mindful of that. Even if it's something we don't want to hear, if emotions come up for you that you feel yourself wanting to react that way, just say, okay, I hear you. I'm going to go take a quick break. Like, I just need a moment to chill. And come back later. That'll save your relationship.
100%.
For sure.
Well, you sound like a tremendous partner. The fact that you even want to take this type of care and consideration to explore more about how to, like, make her feel safe. She's really lucky to have you. So you're great.
Yeah, I love it. And thanks for writing in.
Totally.
We love it. All right, folks. That'll do it for this week. If you like us, follow us on the gram and TikTok at Ditch the Script Pod. And if you want your question answered just like this lovely lady, visit our website, ditchthescriptpod.com, and we will answer it anonymously and then shoot you an email once it's published on our show.
And please, if you are liking the show, like, share, subscribe. Please write a review. That really helps us get this show promoted with other people that aren't you. We love you, but we would also love to share this with more people.
We want more of you.
Exactly. We want more of you. So please do that.
All right, guys. Love you.
Bye.